Happy Sunday, friends. I think we're still getting logged into our stream here. Oh, that is bright. Absolutely good day to you, friends. Let me get us on a different. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Good morning, or depending on where you're at in the world, just hello. Pleasure to be here with you today. And I thought today that not only would we talk about the North and the South nodes having switched position. North node moved into the energy of Taurus. South node moved into the energy of Taurus. We've come out of the Gemini and Sagittarius axes. So where have we come from? Where are we going? What are some of the lessons to be considering? I want to talk about what was happening for each of us about 19 years ago in our charts as well. Today, I am going to pull up a chart example after we do a little bit of explanation. And we're going to look at the chart of Janet Jackson. She's hot, trending on the stage right now, not to mention that when we look back in her life 19 years ago, when there was some Taurus North node action against her sun and her seventh house and her other planets, we also saw a much different arrangement, but still the same kind of pattern. Now, before we jump in and start to talk about any of this stuff, one of the things that I want you guys to remember and to be thinking about, whether you're new here, you've been studying for 100 years, whatever your situation is I want you to be thinking about what was happening in your life about 19 years ago. Think 2003, 2004. What was going on in your life? Because you guys, we just live our patterns. We each just live our patterns. So when you're going through something in your life and you think, oh, I've never been here before, I've never had this experience, this is where astrology just comes and inserts itself and says, yes, as a matter of fact, you have been, but hopefully you've been able to mature and to evolve in the energies that are around you. So wherever you're at today in your life, in your world, in your experiences, I want to assure you, you have energetically been here before, but what decisions are you going to make now? And how does it look in terms of what it's playing out? So think back in your life as I'm going through and just kind of talking about these energies. What was going on for you 2003, 2004, as that was the last time we saw the most recent time we saw the North node in Taurus, South node in Scorpio, okay? Now, if you are new and joining us for the first time, I'm Stormy Grace, and I am a Western tropical astrologer. So you can listen and hang out with me if that's the kind of content that you're into. And whether you are a beginner or, like I said, you've been studying for a long time, we've got a great variety of astrology information that you can make applicable to yourself. If you need more details about what I do, how I do it, when I do it, it's in the description box down below. And if you are also new here or you haven't had a chance to kick into our Kickstarter for year 2 of the YouTube Astrology Academy, where we gather teachers from around the world and put the classes live here on YouTube. So we've got year 1 also, if you haven't had a chance to check that out, okay? All right, beautiful friends, that is all the housekeeping. So let's do a little chat about these nodes switching signs. Now, first and foremost, when we're talking about the nodes, we have 2 of them in our chart, the North node and the South node. There are also 2 different types of nodes that you can work with. You can work with a true node or you can work with a mean node. And this really comes down to astrologer preference. But when we're talking about the nodes, essentially, what I want you to know is that we are talking about these are points. They're not planets in astrology, they're points. And they point us to destiny and karma. That North node, which looks like an N, we'll see it in Janet Jackson's chart, and the South node that looks like an upside down horseshoe or a U, is pointing us towards the things that we've overdeveloped, and now we can begin to release some of these qualities. One side of the nodal axis is not better than the other. We absolutely need them both, and at different times in our lives, even that really overdeveloped South node will serve you very, very, very well. Oh, I'm sure Amazon's here now. And the North node is typically, for each of us, much harder to get to because it requires that we develop these qualities, but we have to surrender some of those qualities from the South node in order to be able to move to the North. And ultimately, because these 2 sit in an opposition, what we're really looking to do is to integrate You want to integrate. When you have an opposition, I don't care if it's the nodes or anything else in your chart, you're looking for integration. What's the sweet spot in the middle that makes sure that you're using all of the information and the skills and the evolution that's available to you to move towards that north node or the destiny point in your chart? Because that north node says, here's where I'm going. This is really what my purpose in life is. That's another thing I just want to share before we get into this. If you are finding yourself feeling like, what's my purpose? Or that's the question that keeps coming up for you, or what am I supposed to be doing? Look towards your north node and any of the aspects or the planetary interactions that are surrounding that. To me, the way that I use the north node in my practice is really about, this is it. This is the game. This is what you're here to do, is in this north node. And if you feel off track, and you will realign yourself with the qualities, actions, attitudes, behaviors, lessons around the north node sign, you can really find that you find yourself getting a bit more back on track, instead of using the whole rest of the chart. Not that it's not applicable. We use the whole chart around here, but I do find quicker course corrections when we look to the north node energy. Okay. So we are looking at the axis of the destiny and the karma points. I need to release a little at the south node, and I need to gain and develop the qualities of this north node. Now, as we traveled through this last couple of years, we saw the nodes, the north node in the energy of Gemini, the south node in the energy of Sagittarius. So this is where we're coming from. And during this time, we saw a lot of things happening in the world, but essentially what we were being asked to as a global collective at a very spiritual, sometimes unconscious level, what we were being asked to do is to south node, Sagittarius, move away from some old ideas, attitudes, philosophies, beliefs that we had ingrained for about 19 years into our life, into our society. And we needed to get away from those because those truths were maybe not the best, most serving truths anymore in our own personal lives. You know, that Sagittarius south node is used to having all of the answers, being very proficient, just knowing what's going on. This is the direction I'm going. I'm the great guru, the great teacher, the master of my fate kind of energy. And as we were asked to move away from it, we were really told, maybe you don't know everything. Maybe you don't know everything about your life. Maybe you don't know what's best for everybody. Maybe you don't know the truth about even information in a society way that is around you, right? And that's a real challenge. We struggled, many of us, with that. Think about your personal life in this last, year, in this last year and a half. What did you struggle with that you believed to genuinely 1,000% be your truth? This is my truth. This is who I am. This is what I am. This is how I do it. This is what it is. This is what people should be doing. What did that look like in your life? And you were leveled, right? From an internal place to an external place, you found yourself being leveled. And the harder you fought for that belief to be your own truth in your own light, and it always has to be this way, we suffer. We suffered under that because that north node was asking us to Gemini. Instead of being the great teacher, we needed to step back into the role of being the great student, the information gatherer, which is really interesting because we weren't always clear on the information, right? Sometimes information was vague. Sometimes we found out it was a big fat lie. Sometimes it was inaccessible. Right? These are concepts that we worked with as that node was in, the north node was in Gemini, but we essentially had to become great students of information. We had to be open to new realms of thinking, right? There had to be a space where we moved away from being the one who had all of the answers and knew everything to going back to being very curious about ourselves, our homes, the people in our homes, our society, things happening on the global stage. So we really found this axis of information is what we were working with. Lots of things that had to do with the mind. Now, the other thing that I think a lot about is that Sagittarian energy is phenomenal in the big picture, right? Oh, I got this big picture. I want world peace. But the Gemini energy is better at the details. It's like, yes, Sag, I know you would like world peace, but what are the steps we're going to take to get there? Right? Where did you find that in your life where you're like, oh, I want to have this experience over here? But you realize you didn't have the steps in place in your day-to-day life to allow that to happen. Gemini energy showed us in a day-to-day detailed kind of way every day. Here's what I do. Here's what I think. Here's what I say. Here's what I believe. Here's where I interact with content, right? Information around us to include our own minds and our own thinking. We found out we're inefficient to get us to the big picture that we wanted to create in our lives. And I don't know anybody who didn't at some level find that out. We saw it on the global stage in society, but where did you find this in your own life? Because again, you have been here before. Listen, if you're over the age of 19, you've had some experience with this energy before, okay? All right, so that is where we are left off with new information, a new space for thought collection and information and new processes that we're willing to take on because we've had to go out and be curious about how to get to the next desired location. And this is where we find the nodes now moving from Gemini-Sagittarius into Taurus Scorpio. So now we've got north node in Scorpio. So, oh my goodness, we've got north node in Taurus, south node in Scorpio. Okay, and we're going to have these energies here all the way until summer of 2023, I believe July of 2023. So we're going to be working with these axes for some time. And I will tell you guys that truly, first of all, I want to remind you, 2022 is a year that is not just straightforward. We have a high retrograde year, including our personal planets. All the planets that we have that will retrograde. Okay, so we're not just whipping anything forward. This is a great year of learning, and we're going to learn about our structures. We'll move forward a little bit, and then we'll move back. We'll move forward a little bit, and then we'll move back, which I think is really needed because now we have to apply what we've learned, what we were curious about, the education and information we got from the North Node in Gemini region into our axes of Taurus and Scorpio, okay? And I think that this is really important because this happens in a destiny place for each of us. Like just for a minute, you guys, just close your eyes and put your hand on your heart for a minute. And that place, ooh, this is the place that the nodes work. It works at that place that is below what we think, how I feel about things, but what is true, okay? So it's a very important axis. Now we've had Uranus also traveling through the energy of Taurus. So for many of us, unlike 19 years ago, Uranus has come and not only woken up this Taurus area of your chart, whatever house that is for you on your chart, it has broken it open and said, you have to innovate. There's more creativity. There's more of your own individuality here. And that individuality is what is true and will feed the masses, right? It comes out of a genuinely good, magical, honest place, which for many people means they will flip their lives upside down because we've been living in what is no longer the truth of who and what you are anymore. So we've got that awakening happening, followed by the North Node now ready to pull that creativity, pull those resources out of us, while we South Node, we surrender control. It's highly vulnerable. We surrender secrets and things that are no longer truths, right? We exit the power struggle with our lives. And you need to look at your chart. What houses are these happening in for you? Because that's the area of your life you're going to feel it, right? You're going to absolutely feel it. Now, you may have some other aspects that allow it to come out in a particular way, which we'll see in Janet Jackson's chart. But this is where we're going. So now we're looking at this area where the Taurus energy, the North Node in Taurus, is to move towards getting out of so much of the emotionalism and get into the art, get into the passion, but get into the earth sign of it. Take that and turn it into something that can become a material reality. Earth signs work in the material plane. What gives you pleasure to create? Is your money right? Do you have things in your house, in that Taurus North Node energy? Do you have things in your house, in your car, in your space, in your emotional life that you've been holding on to for decades, and they are no longer bringing you pleasure? They are keeping you sick. They are creating emotional, spiritual, mental, physical constipation in your life. You'll be called to release these things, and that Uranian energy will absolutely help you to do that. Now, that South Node energy with Scorpio here too, I also think is really telling, because the South Node, when we engage it too heavily, what we find out is when I'm really off course and just super living in this South Node energy, I can't get to my North Node, and there are consequences for it. And they're usually ones that happen inside here and sometimes spin out sideways, okay? So as we're looking more at this Taurus Scorpio axis, other things that we're working on is, again, we need to find the integration so we can make sure that we are in balance. Taurus is about a great, bountiful, abundant, pleasure-filled appreciation of the delicious food we have to eat, the delicious people we have in our lives, the delicious bodies we have to work with. Remember, earth signs work in the material plane. Taurus experiences a lot through the body. In this last year, have you had gratitude for your body? And you'll know if you had gratitude for your body because you not only thought about it, but you did things to take care of it. You fed and you fueled yourself in ways that empowered the gratitude of the body, right? Gratitude is an action word. We're doing it. We're not thinking about it. Okay. We've had a lot of sickness on the stage. So now are you back? Do you appreciate the body? Do you appreciate the health that you have? Whatever that looks like. And in that South Node, right? What we're looking at is I got to surrender. I got to surrender. I've been holding something so tight because I can't even appreciate it because I'm holding it so tight that I feel like I'm afraid if I let this go, who will I be? I'll be the hole in the middle of the donut if I don't have my story, if I don't have my dramas and my traumas, if I haven't moved towards healing those and moving towards the appreciation that my story has fully made me who I am, that my vulnerabilities make me accessible to my fellow human beings, right? But I'm so afraid. You know, where are you at with this today where there's been a power struggle? There's been this dynamic fear energy for you of I got to hold on to this, right? This is what makes me, right? In a very emotional place. And that's the other thing I want to point out. When we're dealing with Taurus and Scorpio, we move out of just the space of the mind where it can be very airy, very powerful, but it's deep. A South Node in Scorpio, we're gonna get in there. Okay, we're going below the level of consciousness. My goodness, we are getting down in there. So as you think about this in your life, what does this bring up for you, right? In your day-to-day life right now, are you experiencing anxiety, guilt, shame, control, and power struggles? I don't actually trust that the universe has my back. Right? I'm worrying about money instead of being in action to make sure that my finances are right. I'm worried about this thing in my partnership. I'm still stuck in the past. Or are you finding that you have some space for freedom? Now, either side is not wrong. It's simply about where you're at and you're growing, because on the other side of that, it's like, well, yeah, I shouldn't play in traffic. I should have a healthy fear of that because I will get hit by a car, right? Or whatever goes through your traffic, right? Because you be in Korea and be on the Jeoncha and you get hit by the tram, right? So I need to be vulnerable with other people. It actually doesn't make me, it doesn't make me a sitting duck waiting for somebody to take advantage of me and harm me. My vulnerability actually cracks me open to my fellow human beings, and it allows me to be free. You know, in your North Node work right now, do you feel like, where are you at with questioning your self-worth? Taurus, I am a Taurus. I'm going to tell you, we do a lot of learning about self-worth, about the simple pleasure of being alive, and that is enough, that your value is not contingent on everything that you are producing, right? So where are you at with this? Where are you at with your possessions, food, money, overeating, overspending, super far in debt? What does that look like? Because what we're moving towards, the advancement of this, is that no matter what is coming down the pike in my life, I first of all realize my problems come from me, not at me. And that gives me a genuine pleasure with understanding the challenge of unwinding them, because I only have to do my part, and I'm worthy. I'm worthy of the work. I'm worthy just as I am, good and bad. I am worthy of not deceiving myself and others to have, right? This is a big concept, I think, as we move towards this North Node work. So it's going to be a very exciting time to look at where we strike that balance of soul level freedom in this particular realm of our lives and with our work. Now, things you'll want to keep in mind, and you guys let me know if you want to see some content on this, but as these nodes are transiting and they are passing through, they may hit points or angles, right? You maybe, if you have a Taurus North Node or a Taurus South Node, you're having either an inverse return or you're having a nodal return. You could be having any one of those. You could also find yourself in a nodal square as well. And these are all going to be little destiny course corrections that happen. And if you guys want to see more content talking about any of these interactions, let me know, because I will throw on a live for you and we will talk through it. You can also have the nodes coming, the transiting nodes coming into contact with other planets in your particular chart. And depending on the planet, it will light it up. And I'm telling you, if you are over the age of 36, you will be able to pick up this pattern and be like, that is exactly what I did 19 years ago. But now here's how it's coming out a little bit different. So you guys let me know in the chat, in the comment section down below, if you're watching back, if you would like to have some content like that this year, because I will absolutely pop in here and pick it up. All right, you guys, let's take a minute and take a look at this chart of Janet Jackson, because I would like to show you her today and her 19 years ago, because as she's having this interaction of the nodal positioning of Taurus and Scorpio, it has come over her sun. And this is a powerful, powerful position. You know, I really think that outside of having an actual nodal return, having the nodes transit your sun is huge. I just think it's huge. And I can tell you, I think it's also huge from my own personal experience. My nodal interaction, as the nodes hit my sun, ooh, honey, like it gets, because we can see you, right? Wherever your sun is at, we can see you in some way. Okay, so let's take a look at this and we'll walk through and we'll see what we're getting and what we're coming up with over here. So let me show you, give me just a minute to screen share. I've got us on two different screens here. Okay, let's screen share Miss Jackson. We're going to come just to her natal chart for a minute. Okay, so first and foremost, a couple things to note. I'm going to move us over here. Okay, so a couple things to note here. Here is the chart for Janet Jackson, comes from astro.com, but this is this birth time at 7 p.m. is not actually confirmed. Okay, so we want to kind of keep that in mind. There was a source that brought the information in, but this is not necessarily confirmed. So we want to keep that in mind. But we're going to work with what we have, because either way, without it being specific, the other thing I like about the nodes is you can still track them back, because the nodes, just like other things, work in very specific timings and patterns. So we can go back to the exact age you were and look at, okay, yeah, well, how old were you when you were, you know, first one we're going to have is 18, 19 in there, right? How old were you at that time? So we can literally go by your age and know that you are in the vicinity of some kind of nodal interaction. So we're going to just use what we've got, but I want to make that clear and put that out there, especially if you're actually studying astrology. We like to have the most accurate times we can possibly have, but we don't always have that. So here we are. Okay, so first and foremost, let's take a look at this chart and see what we've got going here. Miss Jackson, as she is called, we can see she's got this North Node energy in conjunction with her sun in the 7th house. And then we've also got Mars joining that conjunction as well. So this is a powerful energy, like at a nodal level, at a soul level. Some of what Janet has to learn, we're absolutely going to come through the lens of her 7th house, her relationships. I mean, relationships are insanely critical to her life development in this life story at this particular time. Okay. Now we see that that south node is over in the 1st house over here. And she's also got a Scorpio ascendant. Okay. But we see that that south node, Scorpio, excuse me, is over in the 1st house in conjunction with Neptune. Now, I do want to say this, that Neptune is retrograde, which is fine. Outer planets are, we see that a lot. But when I see Neptune in the 1st house, one of the first questions I have come to ask is this person an actor, an actress, a singer? What do they do where they may be able to really use that Neptunian energy to kind of camouflage or to, it's like the actor, actress, energy, right? It comes out so that you can kind of transform into what you need to be next. And in the 1st house, we know that she's doing this, in public. So we already know that that's going to be a part of the story. Now that Neptune also in conjunction with the south node, the very next thought I have is how critical it is that in order to move away from that south node, to shed these things, right? Because this is overdeveloped for her, which, think about this, super overdeveloped south node in the energy of Scorpio, right? Which is about depth, but it's also control. One of her biggest selling albums came out of Control, right? Isn't that phenomenal? 1st house right there. And we see how it crisps up. These nodes make this nice square up here to her midheaven. So we were always likely going to watch her nodal stories play out on stage, in person, be a part of her career, something connected to what we know her as, her reputation, her name, and things happening in public. So we see that very much so available in that particular story. Okay. Now, the other thing about that Neptune with that south node gives me the indicator that she may not know some of that south node story fully, or be able to access it or feel empowered to share that until later in life. Now, one reason I say that is because whenever I look to Neptune, I do look to things from the past. Her Neptune is retrograde. So now we're going even further back. I'm keeping it in just a little bit more, right? Maybe you don't fully know me in some way, shape, or form. And in that south node energy, it's a piece of control. Just push that down, be in control, hold your emotions, keep it together, right? There's something about that in that particular story that I think is very, very profound as we see that working through the 1st house energy. Okay. So this is something that we're working this time to overcome a bit, right? And there's going to be some significance in that particular story. But let's rock back over here to this North Node story for just a minute. Got a stellium in Taurus in the first place. So all of that is being lit up by Uranus and Taurus. So she is genuinely having a breakout, shakeout of these relationships, who she is, what does she have to say, relationship stories in her life. But this North Node and the Sun together, whenever the North Node and the Sun are together, I think that we see the story play out on stage, right? Like we can very much so see the nodal story. And it also would offer opportunities for her to need to develop relationships, and it may be complicated for a time. Maybe she didn't have the best spousal relationships. And excuse me, don't we know about some stuff that was hidden behind the scenes? Maybe you don't really know me because I'm going to be in control of that information. We do. Secret marriage, potential secret child, right? All of this in the 1st house, hidden, right? And many lives, I think, were spent trying to do that behind the scenes dance. And now we come over here to this North Node perspective, and it is about, I have to learn with others. I have to learn to relate with others. I have to learn to talk about what's going on with me, be vulnerable, open, sun, let you see it in the 7th house with other people in my life. I don't think that a North Node in Taurus in general, in the 7th house, is always easy in relationships. So marriages are maybe not as easy. They maybe take some work, right? Because it's like, are you treading on me, right? It can kind of be this dynamic of me first instead of just the we. So the development, I also think, comes from learning to move and listen and share in this 7th house. Now, like I pointed out before, I've lost my mouse. We see that this story of this nodal situation playing out through the lens of the midheaven. Now, the ruling planet of this North Node in Taurus is here. She's got a Venus in Aries in the 5th house, right? And it is quincunx to this midheaven. There is a lot of quincunxing happening. So without knowing who she is, if I pulled this chart, I would think, well, what is it about your ability to go out and make it happen, receive love, have it, be your own voice, your own intuition in your relationships that is very much so like it's blocked, or you're trying to do it in public in some way, and it's not real. This is quincunxing Virgo energy, right? With Neptune in that 1st house. What looks good in public that is maybe not exact? What's happening with that, right? These are questions I would have. And what happened in your childhood, 5th house, the house of children, childhood, conception, these kinds of things. What happened that is informing the story of that node, 7th house, relationships? Okay, so 5th house, also performance, spectacles, taking a risk, any of these kinds of things, right? So we very much so see the performer and performance energy, I think, available in her chart. And then even that, the ruling planet of Aries, Mars, is tucked back in to that Taurus stellium that we're moving towards. So relationships are the name of the game, honey. Okay. So now let's take a look at some of this nodal business. I want to take us, come on a journey with me, friends, back to February 1st, 2004. And we're going to come here because this is quite notable, even though we see that that nodal transit had already come past the sun. And don't worry, I'm going to tell you why and how we got here, okay? So this is Janet's chart when we back it up, February 1st, 2004. And what happened? We had her at the Super Bowl, okay? And her nipple comes out. Well, I mean, it was torn out, right? Like there's the shirt ripped and then the nipple comes out, and that's the situation. So we saw very much so some relationship dynamics, some power struggle, things that happened to her very publicly. We saw that happen, and there was plenty of fallout that came from this as well, all the way until we get to, 2000, what was it? The beginning of 2005, when she actually ended up getting a humanitarian award. So we'll come back to that. Now, I want to point this out really quickly too. Whenever I look at a person's chart and I look for Scorpio, whatever house holds your Scorpio energy, I'm going to look for some kind of power control dynamic with a man in your life. I'm going to look for a biological man who has this energy, and there's some kind of power struggle there, and or that man, typically father, was absent in some way, even if they were sitting right there in the house, in the kitchen the whole time, some version of absenteeism or power dynamic. I look at that in the chart, and usually we'll have a conversation about that. So she's got this node, this ascendant, this Neptune over here in Scorpio. So there is a dynamic happening with some male in her world at this time, probably more than one than we even know about, right? But what's happening at the Super Bowl, friends, right? We see that the 10th house gets sextile and activated by this nodal interaction, control, power dynamic at the ascendant. So somebody has got some control. There's a control where she is seen, where she's available to be seen publicly. And this puts the impact then on this 10th house as well. This Taurus North Node is also making trine right there, right? So the Taurus North Node, where she's supposed to be growing, making something material come to pass, self-worth, empowerment, right? Because Taurus will go for that empowerment. And what was supposed to happen is Justin Timberlake was supposed to rip off the bustier only. There's supposed to be a cute red situation out there. It was like, oh, a little sexy, but not too much. And instead, friends, what happens? What happens? The whole thing comes out, and then we have a problem, right? The nipple comes out, we're on stage. So now she is thrust into public at this particular time. But the North Node having come over her sun, let's talk about that, because when we back that up, we can just back that up months and look at when that was happening. And in the conversation documentary, all of this other stuff, we see, oop, come back, node, come back with me. As I was doing some research, come to find out that as this node even comes to that 29 degrees and the sun is now involved and invested, but even as that node was at the tail end of that Gemini energy, she began to enter talks about this conversation of the Super Bowl. It's like it's rolling around, the information's coming up, people need to vote on it, all of this other good kind of stuff. That node moves down into the energy of Taurus, and it's like, okay, it's probably going to be you. How does this work out? So we can see that as that node was coming across the sun and getting in conjunction already, look, we have a light up. It lit this up, which was like, hey, something probably pretty public is going to happen. So look, this was the omen. It was going to hit something. We were going to see her transiting ascendant in Leo in conjunction with that midheaven, and boom, 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 it is lit up. So way back here, friends, we get the conversation started, but way back here, it's like, hey, guess what? Whatever you do at this particular nodal return, we're going to watch you do it. Okay, we're going to watch you do it. Whatever it is, it will be connected to a male dynamic, some kind of power, control, shared space, something probably pretty intimate, right? And what was the conversation? Who are you going to perform with, right? And it ended up she performed with Justin Timberlake, okay? All right, now, as I was continuing to research the fallout from there, right? If I'm not cautious, because the North Node will say, hey, go this direction. And guess what? If you don't, here are some consequences if you don't. And we find those consequences in the South Node. So what did we find for after we get past February 2004? The fallout from this is that, first of all, she had to come out and she had to make this apology. It was not necessarily accepted. She was supposed to perform at an award show with Justin Timberlake. They let Justin perform. They did not let her perform. Some people even said she apologized for it, but it really wasn't an accident, which I don't know that, right? But that it really wasn't an accident, so people didn't believe her. She had put out another album at that time. I think it was called Demita, because I think that's her middle name, and it was looking to do even better than Control ever did, right? But she was getting blacklisted from radio stations, and all of these kinds of things were happening for her. And she got to go stand her ground, but she got to very much so have a scorpionic experience, right? Scandal, my name is out there. I'm not in control. People are saying things. They're ripping things from me, right? It was very much so that experience, and we watched that happen for her. So now let's kick forward to, we're going to go to January 28th. Okay. So just a few days ago, she's got this 5-part docuseries coming out now, but let's look at this arrangement. Oh, it's so good. Now, if you look at this configuration, still heavy in the bottom of this chart, a lot going on down here, right? Things coming out of out of a private space and going to move to that. Yes, exactly. So getting ready to move there. But what we want to focus on is that nodal transiting nodal action has come over her sun again. And so it's in conjunction at this time. I use 10 degrees when it comes to the node, 5 for most people. So it's in conjunction with that sun and her node. So she is back at a nodal return. Now, if you are out there and you're listening and you're at a nodal return, north node on north node, south node on south node, typically what happens here is it's a destiny point. It's a destiny check-in, right? And it's like you're going to do something huge. You're going to do something life-changing with yourself in this next 18 months if you haven't already put it into place. Because you think about the first one we have when we're 18, 19, you go on your big adventure, you go to college, you do whatever it is that you do, right? And then you stay alive and you get to have some more experience. So what's the great adventure you're going to be going on? Now, we knew coming down and getting ready for this as those nodes were towards the end of their transit in Gemini, Janet likely was having a conversation. Things we're sharing information. Sagittarius, old truths, right? Old truths were coming up, and now those old truths are going to be valuable. They're going to be money. They're going to be a 5-part docuseries. But we're in conversation about all of that during that axis time. And now we see that they come out. So yet again, she's got a nodal interaction where we're going to see her come out in some way, shape, or form. But this time, look at the energetic difference. Let's look at this. First of all, when you look at that first interaction that was happening at that nodal return last time, this was lit up like a firecracker. It was like, top of the chart. We're going out here. We're going out. Now it's a lot more subtle. The squares are still there. And it gave me this thought. I was like, I wonder if one of the really big differences is two things. One, she's already been here. So to do something big in public again, this time she has planned, she has plotted, she has looked at every detail from every angle, right? She's also had the privilege of getting older, which is useful because you kind of shed some of that worrying about what everybody else is going to think about you, right? So that would be helpful. And also, I think she was much more in control of this one, of this particular launch out, right? Now, who is the control factor that we see? The shared space, the shared dynamic, something that is vulnerable, Scorpio energy. Remember, we're moving towards setting that aside now. And this time it's going to talk about, yes, her and her life, but also she and her brother, right? This is a pretty big situation, which is interesting when you consider that not only do we have this going on, we've got Uranus on top of Mercury at this one, right? So I'm breaking out old stories. That has been opened up. My old communication, my old memories, my old times as a performer, all of these things are kind of opened up at this particular time. So we can see that that's happening. Not to mention, we've had ruling planet Venus in retrograde for like ever. Okay. So she has really had some time to go back over if this is a valuable move for her, if this would help her achieve, go back into that karma, right? Like, what does that feel like? What does that look like? And all of those things sit very nicely in trine with her Uranus and her Pluto in a public level. Her Uranus and her Pluto in her chart are retrograde, which likely it offers a signature that whatever her great explosion or expansion or great truth, her great phoenix was going to be, it might not have happened until a little bit later in life. And I'll tell you what, let's get a little Venus retrograde to help those friends get that done. And we're definitely seeing that at a very public level this time. So that node has come over that sun. She's had an awakening. We're going to see her come on out. Look at the absolute set of trines clicking to this third house where I'm going to share information. I'm going to broadcast something out. I'm going to give out a little bit of information. Yes, thank you very much. And that is absolutely out and up and on the agenda. So I wonder how many of you out there are also having a nodal return to your sun specifically, right? Like, so it's going to be a Taurus sun. So Taurus folk, how many of you are like in it right now as opposed to, you know, being down the road, right? So, because some of you may not be having it until we get towards the end of this nodal transit, just depending on what degree your sun is at. My sun is at 14 degrees, but I'm going to tell you guys the energy here. I got a huge course correction for what's going on with me and also what's going on with Stormy Grace during this Venus retrograde. So as Venus came out of retrograde yesterday, I was like, I'm ready to get it. Even though, remember, we're not getting it until March. Okay. Like you can start to slowly get it, but we're not going to be getting it until March officially. So just a little look around, a little astrology for some Sunday. I hope that this makes sense, gives you things to think about. And oh my gosh, you know, look over that chart if you are practicing and you are studying. What else do you see? What else occurs to you? As you look at that chart, what connections do you see and you make astrologically? So lots of cool things. And I did see in the comment section down below that said you guys would like some more content having to do with the nodes and the nodal interactions. So I have made us a little note right here and I will do it. I'll put it out. We'll have a live sometime this week and we will talk about the North Node interactions, get a little bit more into that. Now, if you do not have a chart, please make sure that you either pull one from astro.com, Cafe Astrology, the Chani app, whatever it is that you do to get a chart, or come and get one from me so that we know what we're talking about with you. Not to mention, you want to have your chart because when I'm asking you to go back and look at your patterning from all of these years ago, I don't want to know just what you think was happening in your life. I want to know what other planets were involved in that interaction so we can see specifically. Let's drill this thing down, what you're working on, maybe what you're empowering into and getting free from. So I love you guys a ton. Hopefully you've checked out your February horoscopes. Hopefully you've kicked into the Kickstarter. All of that will be in the description box down below. And of course, on the playlist on the homepage. And this week I will also begin working on the March videos. So we are nice and ahead of time. You know, I'm a Virgo rising. I'm prepared. Okay. I'm prepared, you guys. So I love you all. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. And I